It was supposed to be just another ordinary afternoon in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Emma, a devoted mother in her 40s, had just finished preparing dinner when she realized her 14-year-old son Daniel hadn't come home from school. At first, she thought he might be hanging out with friends, maybe staying late for soccer practice. But as the hours ticked by and the sky turned dark, unease began to gnaw at her heart. Daniel was punctual, responsible, and he always sent her a message if plans changed. This silence was unlike him. Emma called his phone. No answer. She tried again and again, pacing the kitchen floor until her hands trembled. She called a few of his friends, but none of them had seen him after school. Fear began to settle in, a cold weight pressing against her chest. She told herself not to panic, that maybe he had lost his phone, maybe he was just on his way home. But by midnight, panic had swallowed her whole. Daniel was gone. The police were called immediately. Neighbors joined in, flashlights cutting through the dark as they scoured the streets, the woods nearby, every corner of the town. Flyers were printed, his photo spread across social media within hours. Emma barely slept, her mind replaying every possible scenario, each one worse than the last. Where was her son? Who had taken him? The following days felt like an endless nightmare. Reporters knocked on her door asking for statements. Strangers offered tips, but every lead ended in disappointment. Emma found herself driving through unfamiliar neighborhoods at night, searching desperately, calling his name into the wind. At one point, she stood in front of the local news cameras, her voice breaking as she pleaded, "Please, if anyone knows where my son is, bring him back. He is everything to me." 4 days passed. Then 5, then a week. The town's initial energy began to fade, but Emma's determination only grew fiercer. She clung to hope, refusing to accept the unthinkable. Yet, in the quiet moments alone, she would collapse onto Daniel's bed, clutching his pillow, and whisper through tears, "Where are you, baby?" By the 10th day, Emma's hope had thinned into raw desperation. She could feel the pitying stares of neighbors, the hesitation in the police officers' voices. Still, she refused to give up. She was his mother. She would never give up. And then, on the 14th day, everything changed. The police arrived at her doorstep with news that made her knees buckle. Daniel had been found. Alive. Disoriented. Shaken, but alive. Emma rushed to the station, her heart racing with relief and confusion. The moment she saw him, she broke into sobs, pulling him into her arms, kissing his forehead, whispering, "You're safe now. You're safe." But even as she held him, Emma felt something different. Daniel didn't cling to her the way he used to. His eyes darted nervously as though he were hiding something. He looked thinner, paler, like he carried a weight she couldn't see. The nightmare was over, or so Emma thought. What she didn't know yet was that the darkest secret of all was waiting for her, in Daniel's bedroom, right beneath his bed. What would you do if your child disappeared for 14 days and came back? Different. Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this incredible story. Emma thought the hardest part was behind her. Daniel was home, sitting at their kitchen table again, eating the soup she had made for him. She studied him closely, memorizing every movement, every detail of his face, as if trying to reassure herself that he was really there. But there was something off. His shoulders were tense, his eyes distant. When she asked where he had been, he avoided her gaze, muttering vague answers. "I don't remember much," he said more than once. "It's all a blur." The doctors at the hospital had said he was dehydrated, exhausted but physically unharmed. That fact alone was a miracle. Yet Emma couldn't ignore the way he flinched when the subject of the 14 days came up. He would change the subject, retreat to his room, or simply shut down. It left her with more questions than answers. Friends and neighbors came by to welcome him back, bringing food and gifts. Everyone called it a miracle. Emma smiled and thanked them, but inside, unease grew heavier by the day. She knew her son, and this was not the Daniel she knew. At night, she would hear noises from his room, footsteps, whispers, the creak of his bed, as if he were tossing and turning. One evening, she gently opened his door to check on him, only to find him sitting on the floor in the dark, clutching something in his hands. When she asked what he was holding, he shoved it quickly under his pillow and forced a smile. "Just a book," he said, his voice trembling. Emma wanted to believe him, but doubt clung to her heart. On the 7th night after his return, she decided to clean his room while he was at school. Maybe, she thought, putting his space back in order would help him feel more like himself. As she dusted the shelves and folded his clothes, she noticed something strange. The edge of a wooden box barely visible beneath the bed. Her hands shook as she pulled it out. It was small, old, and locked with a simple clasp. She hesitated, her mind racing. Should she respect his privacy? Or was this the key to understanding what had really happened? Her curiosity and her mother's instinct won. She opened the box. Inside were items that made her blood run cold. Several folded letters written in a handwriting she didn't recognize. A faded photograph of a woman Emma had never seen before, holding a baby in her arms. And at the very bottom of the box, an old hospital bracelet with a name that wasn't Daniel's. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She dropped the bracelet on the floor, her heart pounding so loudly it echoed in her ears. None of it made sense. Who was the woman? Whose handwriting was on the letters? And why did her son have a hospital bracelet with another name on it? When Daniel returned home that afternoon, Emma couldn't look at him the same way. She wanted to ask, to demand answers. But when she opened her mouth, the words got stuck in her throat. He was her son, her little boy. But deep down she felt the terrifying truth creeping in. Daniel was hiding something. Something that could change everything. And as she lay awake that night staring at the ceiling, Emma whispered a question she was afraid to hear the answer to. Who are you really, Daniel? Emma has found a box filled with secrets that don't match the boy she raised. But what do these letters and photographs mean? And why would Daniel hide them? The box haunted Emma. She kept it hidden in her closet, away from Daniel's eyes. But the objects inside felt like they were burning holes in her mind. The faded photograph of the mysterious woman, the strange hospital bracelet with a name that wasn't Daniel's, and the letters she hadn't dared to unfold. They all whispered questions she was too afraid to ask out loud. Finally, one afternoon when Daniel was at school, Emma sat at the kitchen table, took a deep breath, and opened the first letter. Her hands trembled as she unfolded the paper. The handwriting was delicate, almost elegant, but filled with raw emotion. My dear boy, I don't know if you will ever read this. I was too young, too scared, and I made a mistake I regret every single day. I never stopped thinking about you. If you're reading this, please know that I loved you from the start. Emma froze. She read the letter again, her heart pounding faster with every line. The words weren't just heartfelt. They were personal, written by a mother to her child. But the name signed at the bottom was not hers. It was someone else's. Tears blurred Emma's vision. She pulled out the other letters one by one, reading them through gasps and sobs. Each one told a story of longing, regret, and hope. They were all written to the same boy, to Daniel. Or was it? That night, Emma confronted him. She placed the letters on his bed and asked, Daniel, where did you get these? Who is this woman? Daniel's face turned pale. He sat on the edge of the bed, his eyes wide and glassy. And for the first time since his return, he spoke without hesitation. I needed to know the truth, Mom. Emma's throat tightened. What truth? Daniel's voice cracked. That I wasn't born into this family. The words hit Emma like a knife. She felt the air leave her lungs. She had always known this day might come, ever since she and her husband had adopted Daniel as a baby. But they had promised each other they would tell him when the time was right. Somehow that time had slipped away, and the truth had remained buried. Until now. Daniel looked at her with tears in his eyes. I found her, Mom. I found my birth mother. That's where I was. For those 14 days. Emma's heart shattered. She wanted to scream, to deny it, but she could see the pain etched in his face. The secrecy, the restless nights, the hidden box. It all made sense now. She reached for his hand, but he pulled away. Why didn't you ever tell me? Why did you hide this from me? His voice cracked with anger and hurt. Emma's tears spilled over. Because we were afraid. Afraid of losing you. Afraid that if you knew, you'd go looking for her and forget about us. The silence between them was unbearable. Emma wanted to tell him that no matter where he came from, he would always be her son. But Daniel's eyes carried a distance she couldn't reach. That night, Emma lay awake with a single, crushing thought. Her son's disappearance wasn't about being lost. It was about being found. Daniel has revealed the unthinkable. He spent the missing 14 days with his birth mother. But what did he discover there? And how will Emma face the truth she has avoided for so long? The air in the house felt different after Daniel's confession. Heavier, quieter, almost suffocating. Emma tried to go about her days as if nothing had changed, but her mind replayed his words endlessly. I found my birth mother. Every time she looked at him, she felt a strange mix of fear and love. He was still her son, the boy she had raised from infancy, but he now carried a truth that drew him toward another woman, another family. On the third night after his revelation, Daniel finally opened up more. They sat at the dining table in silence until he whispered, "Her name is Maria." Emma's heart clenched. She had never known the name. The adoption had been closed, the record sealed. Yet here it was, spoken out loud by the boy she loved. Daniel's voice was soft but steady. "She lives in a small town not far from here. She said she'd been searching for me, but she couldn't find a way to reach us. When I started digging, I found her address. That's why I left. I needed to see her." Emma's hands shook as she gripped her coffee cup. "And what did you find?" she asked, barely able to breathe. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. She cried when she saw me. She showed me pictures of when I was a baby, told me about the hardest decision of her life. She said she wanted to keep me, but she couldn't. She was too young, too alone. He paused, his voice breaking. She never stopped loving me. Emma felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her. For years she had feared this moment, feared the day her son would look into another woman's eyes and feel the bond of blood that she could never give him. But Daniel wasn't done. He pulled out another photo from his pocket and placed it on the table. It showed Maria standing with a little boy about 6 years old, smiling shyly at the camera. "That's my brother," Daniel whispered. Emma's chest tightened. The boy in the photo had Daniel's eyes, Daniel's smile. For a moment she couldn't breathe. The truth was no longer just about a mother. It was about a whole family Daniel had never known existed. Tears streamed down Emma's face as she reached across the table. "Daniel, I know this is overwhelming, but you need to understand something. You are my son. No matter what, that will never change." Daniel nodded slowly, but his eyes were filled with conflict. "I love you, Mom, but I can't pretend this isn't a part of me. I need to know them. I need to know who I am." Emma's heart broke at the words, but deep down she knew he was right. Keeping the truth from him had only pushed him into secrets and silence. Now the choice was in front of her. Fight to hold on to him, or walk beside him as he searched for the missing pieces of his identity. That night, Emma crept into Daniel's room while he slept. She knelt beside his bed, holding his hand, and whispered into the darkness, "You'll always be my baby, but maybe it's time I stop being afraid of sharing you." Daniel has discovered not only his birth mother, but also a brother he never knew existed. Will Emma find the strength to accept this new reality and embrace the truth alongside her son? The following weekend, Emma found herself sitting in the passenger seat of Daniel's old bicycle, holding onto his backpack as they rode toward a small town just outside the city. Her heart raced with every turn of the wheels. She had agreed to come, to finally face the woman whose presence had silently shadowed her life for 14 years. Daniel was quiet as they approached a modest house at the end of a gravel road. A woman stood on the porch, nervously wringing her hands. Maria. Emma recognized her instantly from the photograph. She looked older than in the faded picture, but her eyes, warm, sorrowful, and overflowing with emotion, were unmistakable. When Maria saw Daniel, she rushed forward, her arms trembling as she embraced him. "My boy," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel clung to her, and for a moment Emma felt invisible, standing in the background watching a bond of blood that she could never erase. But then Daniel turned, his hand reaching for Emma's. He pulled her closer and said softly, "This is my mom too." Emma's chest tightened as Maria looked at her, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," Maria whispered, her voice shaking. "Thank you for raising him, for giving him the life I couldn't." The words pierced Emma's heart, not with pain, but with relief. All the fear she had carried for years, the fear of being replaced, melted away in that single moment. Maria wasn't here to take Daniel away. She was here to share the love of a son they both cherished in different ways. Inside the house, Emma met the little boy from the photo, Daniel's younger brother. He was shy at first, hiding behind Maria's skirt, but soon Daniel knelt and smiled at him, and the boy smiled back. Emma couldn't deny it. The resemblance was striking. A piece of Daniel's identity that had been missing now stood right in front of them. The afternoon passed in laughter, tears, and stories. Maria showed baby photos, told tales of the life she had lived, the struggles she endured, and the reasons she had made the hardest choice a mother could make. Emma listened quietly, sometimes squeezing Daniel's hand, sometimes swallowing her own tears. As the sun began to set, Emma stepped outside for some air. Maria followed her, hesitating before she spoke. "I don't want to take him away from you," Maria said softly. "You are his mother. You always will be. I only hope I can have a small place in his life too." Emma turned, her eyes glistening. "You already do," she whispered. "He deserves to know all of who he is. And I think I'm ready to share him." For the first time in weeks, Emma felt peace. She realized that Daniel didn't belong to one mother or the other. He belonged to both, shaped by the love of the woman who gave him life and the love of the woman who raised him. On the drive home, Daniel leaned his head against Emma's shoulder. "I'm glad you came," he whispered. Emma kissed the top of his head, her tears finally falling freely. "No matter where you came from, no matter who else is part of your life, you will always be my son." And in that moment, Emma understood the truth she had been running from. Love isn't divided when shared. It multiplies. This story reminds us that family isn't defined only by blood or by secrets kept. It's built on love, truth, and the courage to face both joy and pain together. Would you have had the strength to share your child in this way? Let us know in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes in the power of love and family.